Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere you can practically smell before you see. Picture this, a low sun rising over the hills of Isparta, Turkey. Yeah, the one with the roses. You're standing in a field that smells like the world's most expensive face cream, and your sneakers are already damp with dew. The light is pink, the air is chilly, and someone just handed you a woven basket the size of a car tire. You've never picked a flower in your life, but today, you're about to become a professional rose petal sorter. Temporarily. Until you get distracted by bread or bees. You probably won't survive this if you have allergies, by the way. Or if you're someone who thinks rose is just the scent of grandma's hand soap. This isn't that. This is history that blooms. Literally. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also tell me where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. I read them all, and it's always a wild trip. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge down a gravel path beside two silent donkeys that seem suspiciously more awake than you. Their baskets are empty. Yours is too. The scent in the air is already outrageous, spicy, sweet, and earthy all at once. You're not sure if it's the rose fields ahead or just the memory of someone wearing Chanel No. 5 too aggressively in a confined elevator. The fields themselves look like something from a dream, rows upon rows of thorny green shrubs all crowned with little pink blossoms. Damask roses, Rosa damascena, the diva of all rose varieties. Their petals are the stars of this sleepy saga. You're told by the field guide, an older man with 3 missing buttons and no time for your rookie energy, that each blossom must be picked before sunrise ends. Why? Because the essential oils begin to evaporate in the heat. That, my friend, is the kind of detail perfumers lose sleep over. You crouch next to a woman who's already picked about 2,000 petals while you were still tying your shoelaces. Her motions are smooth, automatic, 2 fingers under the calyx. A slight twist, a satisfying pop. The petal lands gently in her basket like a secret. You try it yourself. Too slow, too clumsy. You drop a whole stem. She laughs softly, not unkindly. She's done this since she was 9. You were playing Pokemon. You fall into the rhythm eventually. The squish of dew beneath your knees. The squeaky snap sound of petals separating. The moment of panic when a bee thinks you've insulted its wife. Historians still argue whether rose cultivation in this region truly began in the 13th century or much earlier, with Byzantine techniques later adapted by the Ottomans. Either way, someone figured out that a literal field of roses could also be a field of gold, if you can distill it fast enough and smell like heaven doing it. The morning sun slowly climbs. The sky shifts from lavender to gold. You're sweating now, but also proud you filled half a basket, which, according to a cheeky local saying, is roughly enough for half a sneeze of rose oil. Translation: you're still useless but slightly more fragrant. One of the donkeys snorts as if to agree. The sun keeps rising. So does the noise. Laughter begins to ripple across the field. Jokes about whose petals are softest. Who picked a bloom with a ladybug on it, bad luck. Who tried to flirt last season and ended up with a thorn in their shirt collar. You're handed a small tin cup of sour cherry juice by a girl who's maybe 11 and already twice the farmer you'll ever be. She tells you it's best cold. You take a sip. It tastes like edible rubies. You pause and look back. The rows you came from are emptier now, the bushes stripped of their glory. But ahead, oh, there's still a sea of pink. There's a quiet sort of pride here. A daily ritual that hasn't changed much in centuries. You can imagine Ottoman courtiers receiving perfumes made from these very petals. The same sun, the same smell, the same backache probably. You hear someone shout in Turkish, "Move faster," or the sun will take her share. You do, because the sun's taxes are non-negotiable here. And as your basket grows heavier with petals, soft, dewy, intoxicating, you start to wonder how in the world do they sort all this out. But don't worry, that comes next. For now, just pluck, breathe, and hope the bees are feeling generous today. You shift the basket onto your hip the way the others do, though your arm is already protesting. It's surprisingly heavy for something made of rose petals. You thought they'd weigh nothing. You were wrong. They hold dew, and hope, and about 15 future bottles of overpriced perfume. The sun is climbing. A sleepy breeze slips through the valley just enough to make the petals flutter at the basket's rim. You follow the others, barefoot women in wide headscarves, one guy who somehow always finds shade, and the donkeys who never seem to be in a hurry but always arrive first. Your feet crunch down the dirt path toward the sorting courtyards. Low-walled spaces half-shaded by grapevine canopies and fig trees with dusty benches and wooden troughs lining the edges. You duck beneath a string of drying laundry and enter the open square. It smells like flowers, obviously, but also sandalwood and sweat and the tiniest hint of last night's lentil stew. There they are, the wooden bowls. So many of them. Round, shallow, hand-carved, and arranged in precise rows like lazy chess pieces. Each one a little different, some dark with age, others newer and pale with fresh grain. Most are burnished by oil and use their rims rubbed smooth by decades of careful hands. Your job now. Tip your basket into one. Gently. You do. The petals settle in a sigh. Some cling to your sleeves. A few catch on your collarbone. You smell like a love letter. The others take their spots sitting cross-legged or on low stools. You follow suit. It's time to sort. The rules are simple and sacred. Separate by color first. Softest pinks in one pile, deeper crimson petals in another. Then texture silkier petals to the left, papery ones to the right. Last comes flaw inspection. Any with holes. Bruises or signs of early rot go into the compost bowl. The best ones. They stay like royalty awaiting coronation. You're given a wide-toothed wooden comb to fluff the pile, then use your fingers. It's surprisingly meditative. The petals whisper against your skin like dry snow. You fall into the rhythm. Brush, pinch, toss. Brush, pinch, set aside. One woman across from you has a method that's downright surgical. She spreads the petals out like cards, flicks them with her thumb, and mutters under her breath like she's naming each one. Someone says she talks to the flowers. Someone else says the flowers answer. Nobody argues. You overhear a local historian. Yes, apparently someone is documenting this entire process for a university thesis. Explain that rose petal sorting in Anatolia dates back to the Seljuk era, though older Sumerian texts mention similar rituals with lilies. Whether they sorted by softness back then is still up for debate. Your favorite part. Watching the sun hit the sorted bowls. The colors shift like silk. Some petals glow golden. Others turn the color of ripe watermelon. It's like sitting in a living kaleidoscope. Then the sneezing starts. You try to stifle it, fail. The fine pollen dust wafts off the pile every time you stir it. And let's be honest, you're stirring it more than necessary, just to watch the puff of fragrant particles rise like glitter in slow motion. You sneeze again. The woman next to you smirks and offers a handkerchief embroidered with tiny roses. Of course. You ask where the bowls came from. She says her grandmother carved them with her brothers. Others were passed down through marriages or traded for jars of rose honey. One bowl she swears belonged to a woman who could smell if a petal came from the north side of a hill just by holding it to her cheek. Historians still argue whether rose sorting ever had standardized guilds like other trades. Some say yes, organized perfume houses required it. Others claim it was always a homegrown, family-passed skill. What's not debated? The unmistakable pride each sorter takes in their bowl, their batch, their eye for flawlessness. Time slows. A breeze rustles a fig leaf overhead. Somewhere a chicken screeches like it's offended by the very concept of perfume. You're still sorting. By now, your fingers are tinted slightly pink and smell like 17 soap commercials blended into one. You feel oddly relaxed, focused. Maybe it's the repetition, maybe it's the scent. Or maybe it's just the quiet approval of the old woman who finally nods at your pile and says, "Good. These could go to the palace." You smile, then sneeze again, violently. The bowl in front of you shakes. A petal floats up and lands delicately on your lip like a floral mic drop. Someone claps, someone else snorts. And just like that, you're in. Part of the rhythm, part of the joke, part of the bloom. The air in the courtyard thickens with warmth and fragrance. By now, the sun has crept high enough to flood the sorting area in golden light, casting sharp shadows beneath the fig leaves and exaggerating the carved rings on the bowls. You squint a little as you reach for another handful of petals. Your eyes aren't used to sorting shades this subtle. Is that blush pink or peach? Is that softness from dew or from a flaw? Your fingertips have learned to tell the difference better than your eyes. The bowls in front of you brim like shallow clouds, mounted petals rising gently over the edges. There's a strange satisfaction in watching the piles grow, like making miniature mountains of silk. One of the older women fans herself with a woven basket lid and mutters that you're stacking your pile too high. They bruise under their own weight, she says. Even roses have limits. You gently flatten the top. That earns a nod. The courtyard is full of this kind of guidance, quiet corrections, gentle tuts, a firm glance that somehow moves your elbow into the right angle. It's like being taught to dance by a room of patient grandmothers. You never knew sorting rose petals would feel so much like choreography. The historian from earlier, yes, he's still here lurking with his notebook and a sweat-streaked brow, says that in Ottoman records, workers were instructed to rotate petals every 20 minutes to prevent clumping. Whether they actually timed it with water clocks or just guessed is still under debate. He's also very concerned with documenting the exact angle of the sun at which petals begin to lose their oil. You suspect he hasn't slept in 2 days. Meanwhile, a boy no older than 10 plops down beside you with a new basket. His job is to fluff. That's what he says very seriously. I fluff them. So they breathe. He stirs the petals like a baker folds whipped cream, slow, wide gestures, careful not to crush anything. He adds, if they don't breathe, they sweat. And if they sweat, they cry. And if they cry, they smell sour. You nod solemnly because he clearly outranks you. As the minutes pass, you start to notice other details. The way certain petals curl at the edge as they dry, how the color deepens after exposure to sun, but only slightly. That some petals have tiny white ridges like little goosebumps, while others are glass smooth. The scent changes to less sweet, more green. You catch the earthy underside of rose oil. Not just perfume, but something deeper, more ancient. Across the courtyard, a team begins weighing sorted petals. Not by handfuls, not by volume, but by grams. You watch one woman tip a full bowl onto a wide metal scale. The number blinks 500 grams. Half a kilo. She smiles. That's a good haul. For reference, it takes over 3,000 roses, yep, roses, not just petals, to produce a single gram of rose oil. 1 gram. So this bowl, half a kilo of sorted petals. It's worth about half a fancy hotel lobby scent. You try not to think about how little your own bowl weighs. Still, there's something grounding about this. In a world where things are measured in megapixels and megabytes, here you are valuing something because of how it smells, how it folds in your palm, how it flutters when the wind catches it. A young woman nearby folds a scarf into a triangle and wraps it over her nose. Too much pollen, she says muffled. You realize your nose is starting to feel the same. Someone offers you a cloth. You tie it on and immediately sneeze inside it. Congratulations, you've just baptized it with the sacred scent. Lunch is still a while away, but the sorters begin talking about food anyway. Someone mentions rose petal jam. Someone else sighs in longing. A third scoffs and says she prefers it dried and sprinkled over yogurt. You're firmly on Team Jam even if you haven't tried it yet. The historian still scribbling pauses and mutters something about the economic value of rose oil during World War I. Apparently, there were entire diplomatic exchanges where rose essence was bartered like treasure. But what's truly debated, he notes with a wink, is whether the best petals came from Bulgaria, Morocco, or right here in Turkey. Historians still argue, but ask any Turkish grandmother, he says, you'll get your answer. The boy who fluffs wrinkles his nose. Bulgaria, he says, offended. You lean back against the sun-warmed stone wall. Your shoulders ache, your fingers are permanently rosy, and you smell better than any shampoo it ever produced. You close your eyes for just a second and feel the warmth of the wooden bowl beside you. It's full. The petals are perfect. They catch the light like a pink lake at sunset. And for a moment, everything slows. No notifications, no noise. Just the hush of petals, the murmur of old songs, the creak of a wooden spoon stirring. You let the moment linger, because there's still more to do. You reach for another bowl. This one's drier, a little warmer to the touch. The sun has started crawling across the courtyard stones like a lazy cat, and the bowls in its path are heating up fast. You shift yours a little closer to the shade, mindful now of that warning you got earlier. Roses sweat when they're too warm. You're still not entirely sure petals can sweat, but you've decided not to challenge centuries of wisdom just because science has a few opinions. These bowls aren't just containers, they're part of the ritual. The one you're holding now has a smooth dip along one rim, worn in by decades of fingers scooping, sifting, selecting. There's a tiny engraving on the side, a crescent moon barely visible beneath a varnish of oil and time. Someone cared enough to mark it. Someone knew this bowl would outlive them. The woman across from you, the one with the scarf tied high over her cheekbones, is singing now. Not loud, not showy, just humming a tune that feels like it's made out of dust and honey. Others start to pick it up too until the whole courtyard is vibrating with soft, overlapping voices. You hum along, off-key, obviously, but no one cares. The melody doesn't have words, not anymore anyway. You're told later it was once a wedding song, then a lullaby, then something people sang to calm down donkeys during long transport treks. Like many things here, it adapted, just like the roses and the bowls. You hear a clatter, someone dropped a scoop. Then laughter. The boy who fluffs trips over a stray sandal and lands in a full bowl of petals. He emerges grinning, petals in his hair like he's been knighted by spring itself. You notice the scoops, now curved wooden spoons with long handles, many of them carved from sandalwood or olive. Some have inlays. Others are cracked or dark with oil. One has a little brass rose nailed into the handle. Another has a dent that fits perfectly into the palm. They're not mass-produced. They're passed down, shaped by hands, accidents, and a bit of superstition. You reach for yours. It's heavier than you expect. The curve is wide, perfect for lifting a full palmful of petals without letting them fall. You scoop slowly, lifting the petals from one bowl to another. And then you sneeze. Again. This time it's loud enough that two pigeons on the wall flap away in protest. You try to recover your dignity by scooping more gently, but another sneeze is already loading in your sinuses like a sneeze cannon. The woman beside you passes over a tiny jar. Inside, rose petal. Salve, she says. Rub it on your nose. You do, and immediately smell like the inside of a fairy tale. You go back to scooping. Lift, pause, pour. Listen for the whisper. The petals sound like dry silk sliding past itself. You imagine this sound, this scent, this motion repeating back through time. 100 years ago, maybe more. Historians still argue whether rose-sorting bowls were strictly domestic or if formal workshops existed in Ottoman cities for large-scale perfume production. Some point to tax records from Edirne and Bursa. Others claim the real economy was in these courtyards hidden behind fig trees and grape arbors where women worked quietly and invisibly. Either way, these bowls held empires in them. One scoop at a time, the courtyard hushes a little as an elder arrives. Nobody says her name, but everyone makes room. Her robe is linen hand-stitched, probably older than the donkey. She carries her own bowl darker than any you've seen, almost black with time. She doesn't sort. She watches. She lowers herself onto a cushion, sets the bowl in her lap, and begins stirring with her fingers. You expect speed precision, some kind of master technique, but no, she moves slower than anyone, like she's telling time with her fingertips. Every now and then, she lifts a petal, holds it to the light, and murmurs something that sounds more like poetry than instruction. You glance around and realize everyone's watching her, without trying, without needing to. A girl beside you whispers, "She sorted for the Sultan's perfumer once." Long time ago. You look again. The way she holds the bowl, the way she touches the petals, like each one is a story, a memory, maybe even a spell. It's not just sorting. It's translation. From flower to fragrance, from silence to scent. Someone coughs. Someone drops a spoon. The moment softens. The breeze returns. You go back to your bowl. Lift, sift, stir. And suddenly, the courtyard doesn't feel like a place. It feels like a pulse. Steady, centered, alive. By midday, your hands smell like you've fallen into a vat of luxury lotion. And honestly, you don't mind. The courtyard buzzes with quiet concentration. The sun is high now, and a few of the sorters have draped their scarves over wooden stakes to make makeshift shade. You tuck your bowl under one of them, grateful for even a slice of coolness. That's when someone mentions the weight, not metaphorically the actual weight. The woman with the brass-ringed scoop lifts her bowl and says it feels just right. 300 grams, she estimates, like she's guessing the price of a melon. You try to lift yours. It's heavier than you thought. Someone offers a portable brass scale. You tip your petals into the scale's dish and wait for the pointer to settle. 210 grams. You try not to show how proud you are, but it definitely shows on your face. A young sorter gives you a thumbs up. Enough for one drop, she jokes. And it's true. It takes approximately 4,000 rose blossoms, roughly 1.6 kilograms of fresh petals, to make a single gram of rose oil. That means your bowl, fragrant and full, could yield maybe a tear, a sigh, a whisper of oil. Still a whisper that costs more than most gold chains. Historians still argue whether the legendary price of rose oil was driven more by rarity or by the sheer labor behind it. Some say the Ottomans overhyped the product for court intrigue. Others insist the value lies entirely in the hours spent sorting, sniffing, and sacrificing sleep to beat the sunrise. The truth, as always, is likely both. The boy who fluffs stops by and casually drops a petal into your bowl. "Bonus," he says. You laugh, but notice it's a deeper pink, definitely an upgrade. You keep it. Nearby, the scent thickens. Someone's brought in petals that were just picked and not yet sorted. They dump them into a bowl, and the scent explodes into the air, sharp, almost peppery, with a tang of green. You didn't realize how different fresh-cut roses smell compared to sorted ones. The sorting softens them, calms them down. Like aging cheese, but less French and more floral. One of the more playful sorters dares you to try the fingertip test. Press the petal, she says, and count how long the oil sheen stays. You press. A faint shine appears, then vanishes after 5 seconds. Decent, she says with a shrug, but not royal. You smirk. I'm working on it. Then she grins and throws a whole handful of petals into your lap. Welcome to the club. Lunch is called with the short whistle and a string of Turkish phrases you don't quite catch. Everyone rises slowly, stretching backs and shaking out fingers. You stand too, somewhat stiff, smelling incredible, and somehow now more tired than when you were plucking roses before dawn. The lunch is simple and perfect. Flatbread warm from a nearby pan, a bowl of tangy yogurt thick enough to stand a spoon in, and here it is, petal bread. A kind of soft, sweet loaf dotted with crushed rose petals and brushed with oil. You bite into it and the flavor blooms floral, faintly bitter, grounded by earthiness. Like biting into perfume if perfume had a doughy cousin. There's also rose syrup mixed into cold water. You gulp it like you've been lost in the desert. The group eats together under a stretched canvas tarp legs tucked in bowls on laps. They talk about the harvest. This year is better than the last, less rain, more bloom. They talk about how many bowls they've filled. One woman boasts 17. Another says her record was 32 in a single day, but that was before her knees turned 40. Then the talk shifts. One man mentions the old days when distilleries weren't electric, and you had to stoke the copper stills by hand feeding them wood while keeping the temperature just right. If it got too hot, the oil would burn. Too cool. The essence wouldn't release. A real romance, he sighs, with no room for mistakes. Another woman recalls how her aunt used to sort petals by moonlight during a bumper year. They'd run out of daylight in bowls, so the whole courtyard lit up with lanterns and the scent kept neighbors awake. Some people complain, she says, but no one actually left. You laugh. Because, yeah, how do you walk away from a courtyard full of roses? You lie back for a moment, letting the afternoon breeze wash over you. Your shirt smells like petals. Your fingernails are full of color. And your heart. It's oddly quiet. The courtyard isn't just a place anymore. It's a mood, a rhythm, a home you didn't know you'd miss until you leave. You return to the courtyard slower than before, lulled by food and sun, and that rose syrup daze that now hums through your limbs like a sleepy lullaby. A few sorters are already back at work, crouched low over their bowls, their hands moving lazily but deliberately. You pass the boy who fluffs. He's lying in the shade of a donkey, flicking petals into the air one at a time just to watch them fall. Your next bowl awaits. It's deeper this time and darker, made of older wood, possibly walnut, with tiny hairline cracks in the base that have been lovingly sealed with some kind of wax. You trail a finger over the edge. It's warm from the sun, but not too hot. You shift it into the shade before the petals begin to sweat again. You start sorting anew. The rhythm is familiar. Now lift, examine, toss. Your fingers know what to look for. Smoothness, like satin. Color, like ripened fruit. Petals that make your fingertips pause just slightly longer, as if even your skin is reluctant to let go. Every so often, someone chuckles at your pile. Too perfect, one says. You're hoarding them for a princess. You shrug. Why not? Everyone here deserves a little royalty. One of the sorters, a wiry man with a white beard and one long fingernail he uses like a hook, leans over. He grins, eyes twinkling. You want to know how much oil you've sorted so far, he asks. You nod. He picks up a single petal, twirls it between his fingers and says, about as much as fits in here. Then he blows the petal away. You both laugh, because it's true. But it's also not the point. You're not here to become rich. No one is. This isn't about profit margins or mass production. This is about doing something humans have done for centuries, transforming something fleeting into something that lingers. A woman nearby picks up a petal and holds it to her ear. You watch in confusion. She's listening for the oil, the boy who fluffs says, straight-faced. You raise an eyebrow. She's also a little dramatic, he adds, and runs off giggling. Later, you try it yourself. Hold a petal gently, like it might whisper. You hear nothing, of course, but you swear it's warmer than the others, almost buzzing. Historians still argue whether early rose oil makers in Anatolia used the double distillation method first or adapted it from Persian techniques. Some say it was invented independently. Others think it came from the East and mingled with local traditions. Either way, the roses didn't care. They just bloomed. And someone somewhere figured out that the best ones had to be touched by hand. The sun is lowering now, and the shadows in the courtyard have grown long and soft. You glance at your hands stained at the fingertips as if dipped in watercolor. A faint sheen clings to your skin, invisible unless the light hits just right. You try the fingertip test again. Press a petal gently, hold it up to your nail. A glisten appears. 7 seconds. You don't say anything, but the woman across from you notices. She nods. That one, she says, goes to the top bowl. You move it there without question. You've heard whispers of what the top bowl is for those petals are set aside for the purest distillation. They'll go through the stills once, no water added, no second press, just raw essence. It's rare, it's expensive, it's sacred. One sorter claims you could smell it through a wall. Another swears it gave her a dream once. The wind picks up briefly, scattering a few petals across the stone floor. Everyone pauses, some to chase them, some to laugh, and one woman to make the sign of protection with her fingers. She says the wind only carries away the jealous ones. You believe her? Why not? At this point, the courtyard feels less like a workspace and more like a gentle spell. It's protected, quiet, suspended in rose-scented time. The boy who fluffs returns and drops something in your lap. A spoon, carved from olive wood. Short handle, shiny from age and use. You look up. He just winks and says, "You earned it." You hold the spoon like a prize, like a medal. It fits your hand perfectly. Back to work. Scoop, stir, place. The petals obey, and the bowl begins to sing. Not aloud, of course, but in that way things do when they've been used well. When they remember. You're not just sorting petals anymore. You're layering scent. You're tuning a memory. You're learning to listen with your hands. It starts to cool, not by much, but just enough that the stone beneath you loses its burnt and the wind carries a whisper instead of a weight. You shift slightly on your cushion, cradling your bowl in your lap now like something fragile and asleep. You stir gently. You've learned that it's not about mixing so much as letting the petals settle in new ways. Stir too fast and they bruise. Stir too slow and they start to stick together. There's a rhythm, a breath, like folding a dream into itself. The scoop helps. The olive wood spoon, your spoon, now moves with an ease you didn't expect. Someone calls it the rose's ladle, which sounds like the title of a romance novel or possibly a forgotten folktale. Either way, you'll take it. Today you learn about petal size. You hadn't really thought about it. Roses are roses, right? But no. Turns out the diameter of a petal determines not just scent, but oil content and layering quality. The larger, rufflier petals hold more oil near the edges. The smaller, silkier ones concentrated in the center. So you start dividing them. Big petals to one side, small to another. The others do the same. Some even arrange them in circles, like flower crowns being built in reverse. The older man with his brass scoop points to your pile. Those big ones, he says, used for oil. Small ones used for face tonic. You nod. He leans in. And the ones with bite marks. Pause. Donkey. He deadpans. You both laugh. Historians still argue whether early rose processors understood the chemical difference in petal layers or just followed scent and superstition. One 18th century journal mentions distillers chewing petals to taste the depth of their soul. Which you must admit is extremely dramatic, but after a day of sorting you almost get it. The pile in front of you grows. A sorter across the courtyard hums again, this time a tune you recognize, vaguely. Maybe from a lullaby, or a movie, or just the shape of the air itself. You hum along, catching fragments. Then someone taps a bowl like a drum. A small rhythm starts. Spoon tapping wood, fingertips snapping, a beat made entirely of rose people who should probably be napping, but are instead forming a petal-based percussion circle. It lasts all of 2 minutes, but it's enough to shake off the quiet, enough to feel like celebration. Afterward, everyone goes back to work without saying a word. You keep sorting. A breeze brings the distant scent of copper, faint, sharp, clean. That's the distillery, you're told, just up the hill. You can't see it from here, but you can smell it. That tang of heated metal, rose, and something else like the ghost of sap burning. They'll start distillation soon. You glance down at your bowl. It's beautiful. The petals have settled into gentle folds like silk scarves in a drawer. You reach in and pull one out. It's nearly translucent in the sunlight. You hold it between 2 fingers and marvel again at how little it weighs, and yet how much it holds. Someone sets down a bowl beside you. Not wood, but copper. Smaller, heavier. For the best ones, she says, you fill it. You blink. Your own copper bowl. You want to ask if this is a test or a promotion or some kind of inside joke, but she's already walking away. So you begin. You start transferring the top petals. Slowly, reverently. Only the best. Only the ones that press between your fingers and leave behind a breath of oil and nothing else. The ones that shimmer when they land in the copper like they were meant to be there. Each one feels like a whisper, a promise, a drop of something ancient. No one's watching you, but everyone knows. You fill the bowl. You don't overfill it. You finish, set the spoon beside it, and fold your hands. A woman walks by, peers, and nods once. This batch, she says, goes to the rose oil master. She lifts the bowl like an offering. And you sit back and try not to grin too hard. The copper bowl is gone now, carried away like a treasure on someone's careful palms, and you're left with a faint sense of accomplishment and a very rosy lap. A few stray petals cling to your sleeves, your elbows, even your hair. You pluck one from behind your ear like it's the most natural thing in the world. Around you, the courtyard moves slowly, as if time itself has taken a deep breath. The sorters shift into the next stage without any announcements or instructions. It's not about speed now, it's about care. The bulk sorting is done. What remains are the fine details. The whispers, someone calls them. You join the others in what they call the second glance. Each sorted bowl gets a final inspection. You sit cross-legged and lean in eyes focused. This is the stage where mistakes are caught. A browned edge here. A petal that's too dry or slightly torn. Some are removed gently and placed into a side dish for soap making or rosewater infusions. Nothing is wasted. Even the rejected petals are beloved. As you work, a nearby group begins singing again. A different tune this time, slower, more haunting. You don't understand the words, but the feeling is unmistakable. It's not a work song, it's something older, reverent, like they're singing to the roses, not just with each other. The boy who fluffs returns now carrying a bowl nearly his own size, wobbling slightly as he walks. He drops it with a thud beside the oldest sorter, the woman in linen who never rushes. She pats the bowl's rim like greeting an old friend. She doesn't sort immediately. She just sits with it, eyes closed, as if letting the scent tell her everything she needs to know. Historians still argue whether songs were integral to rose petal rituals or simply incidental, passed down culturally. Some folklorists claim certain melodies were designed to match the natural distillation cycles. Others insist it was just the sorters trying to stay awake during long nights. Either way, the songs still linger in notes and petals, in memories too quiet for paper. A few sorters begin weaving garlands from leftover petals. Not for sale, just for fun. One woman wears hers like a crown. Another strings hers around her ankle and kicks her foot playfully. The petals flutter like confetti with each step. You smile and start to do the same with the petals in your lap. Why not? Someone shares a joke about last year's harvest when a rogue goat wandered into the courtyard and ate half a basket before anyone noticed. It smelled like a royal bakery for days, they laugh. You try to imagine a goat burping rose perfume. It's disturbingly vivid. Later, one of the middle-aged sorters motions for you to follow her. You do, bowl in hand, and she leads you to a shaded alcove behind the sorting space, a quieter nook, with low shelves, linen cloths, and a few carved boxes. She opens one. Inside are petals dried, perfectly preserved, and sorted by hue. Faded reds, pale blushes, soft yellows. Each wrapped in parchment and labeled in a script you can't read. These are the memory petals, she says softly. Special days, first harvests, wedding batches, losses too. She lets you place one of your best petals inside. You choose carefully, silky, deep, pink, flawless. For today, she says, and closes the lid. You don't ask questions, you just nod. And then you sit again. Because there's always more to do. This time you're given a small bowl of mixed petals from everyone. Your task? Blend them for uniformity. A simple act but delicate, like balancing a perfume by touch. You lift, mix, fold, and slowly the scent changes. It's no longer just rose, it's roses plural, blended, layered, softened by each other. There's something deeper in the mix now, almost like honey or memory. You hold the bowl to your nose, and for the first time all day you breathe in and actually sigh. The sigh lingers. It's not just about exhaustion, though. Your legs are starting to tingle and your spine has forgotten what straightness feels like. It's a different kind of exhale. The kind that comes when your senses finally give up resisting and just let themselves be overwhelmed. You're not alone in this. Around the courtyard, you see the same softness in everyone else's movements. No more rushing, no more checking bowl weights or adjusting cloths. Just a communal glide into the final acts of the day. You're given a small clay tag next pressed with a faint floral pattern and strung with twine. One of the elder sorters leans over and whispers, "Put this on the best bowl, the one that might go royal." You don't argue. You know which one it is. You loop the string around the bowl's rim, gently pressing the tag into the petals so it rests like a seal. That bowl is set aside, its future possibly a bottle in Istanbul, or a vial carried in a perfumer's case to Paris, or maybe even a drop placed on a bride's wrists the morning of her wedding. Who knows? That's part of the charm. Historians still argue whether the rose oil of Isparta ever actually made it into the hands of Ottoman sultans. Some say it was too rare and expensive. Others point to ledger records and letters mentioning the oil of the Highland roses, but the villagers here, they don't argue. They know it did, because their great-grandmothers told them. And that's that. A quiet signal goes out, one you barely notice until it's already in motion. Sorters begin closing up. Bowls are stacked carefully, always right side up as tradition demands. Petals that didn't make the cut are funneled into burlap sacks for soap tea or compost. The best are carted away toward the stills where copper domes wait to turn bloom into essence. You wander briefly following the trail of one of those carts, curiosity tugging at your heels. The distillery is modest but reverent. A round stone building with sloped wooden shingles and a copper vent rising like a steeple. You don't go in, not yet, but from outside you can hear the hum. A low, steady, heat-driven sound like a sleeping dragon just beneath the floor. And the scent. It's different here, denser, fuller. Like the roses have finally stopped pretending and revealed their true selves. There's even a faint shimmer in the air, like heat over asphalt, except instead of burning rubber, you get a blend of crushed velvet and spiced sugar. You step back, because the courtyard still calls. Back among the bowls, the sorters are cleaning up, but not in a hurry. They wipe spoons with cloth napkins. They gently pat dust off the rims of old bowls. Some whisper little thank yous under their breath. Not to each other, to the bowls, to the roses, maybe to the day itself. You sit again for one last moment and place your hands in your lap. There's nothing left to sort, not really, but your fingers twitch wanting to touch the petals one more time. Like they've become used to the motion, to the texture. Someone sits beside you, a woman you haven't spoken to yet. She hands you a piece of paper folded tightly. You open it. Inside is a pressed rose petal, perfectly flat, still pink. "It's from your first batch," she says. "We keep one for new sorters. You never know, you might come back." You nod slowly, carefully folding the paper again and tucking it into your pocket like a secret. And then, as if summoned, a young man walks into the courtyard wearing a long coat and sandals, his satchel slung across his back. He's from the perfume house in the city. Everyone knows him. He walks to the tagged bowl. Your tagged bowl lifts it with a respectful nod and carries it away without a word. Gone. Just like that. You sit in the silence he leaves behind. Not empty, just still. A few petals remain scattered on the stone floor. You pick one up, press it between your fingers, and this time you do listen. There's no whisper, but there is a warmth, and you understand now what the boy meant. They don't cry, but they remember. The courtyard breathes. Not literally, of course, but that's what it feels like. A long inhale, and now a slow, deliberate exhale. Petals have been cleared. Bowls have been stacked, and sorters drift through the space like the last notes of a lullaby. No one rushes. Nothing clangs. Even the donkeys seem to walk softer. You lean back on your elbows, the stone still warm beneath you, and watch as the last cart rolls toward the distillery. That scent, thicker now, rides the breeze and settles in your throat like rosewater tea. A woman appears at your side with a small cup. You're not even surprised. Petal brew, she says. You take it. The tea is warm, a little cloudy pale pink. The first sip is strange, floral, earthy, faintly bitter, but then it rounds into sweetness. Not sugar, just the taste of a field at sunrise, of something fleeting caught in a cup. You drink it slowly, watching the shadows stretch across the courtyard. The bowls now sit in careful towers, some covered with cloths, others left exposed to the air so they can continue drying. You realize that each sorter has their own stacking method. Diagonal, nested, aligned by size. Tiny preferences passed down like family recipes. One woman crouches beside her bowls and whispers something to each one. You pretend not to notice, but the look on her face is the same one you'd give a diary. There's a belief here, unspoken but understood, that bowls retain memories. Not just of petals, but of moods, of years, of which hands touched which flowers. The older sorters talk about bowls that won't sort well if they're placed in the wrong light, or bowls that produce bad batches if someone angry uses them. You once thought superstition was charming. Now you're not so sure it isn't true. Historians still argue whether this kind of folk reverence stems from Anatolia's deep animist roots or if it's simply poetic language for process and patience. Some anthropologists even claim that old households gave names to their sorting bowls, much like naming a beloved cat or stubborn mule. You reach out and trace your finger along the rim of the bowl nearest you. You don't know its name, but it feels like it knows yours. There's a sudden burst of laughter across the way. A group of younger sorters, probably no older than university age, have taken to flinging petals into the air, watching them spin and fall. Someone tries to catch them on their tongue like snow. Another arranges them into the shape of a heart on the courtyard floor. It's silly and perfect. You watch for a while, then quietly gather a few petals of your own, pale, almost white. You start laying them out in a slow spiral on a flat stone near your seat. One by one, no rush, just placement. By the time someone walks by and raises an eyebrow, you've made what resembles a seashell, or a fingerprint, or maybe the inside of a flower dreaming. The woman grins. You'll be back, she says, and walks on. You're not sure if it was a compliment or a prophecy. The breeze picks up again, and this time carries a new scent, more distilled, sharper, with an edge of something metallic. The first distillation has begun. From this far away you can't see much, but you hear it, the slow gurgle of the still, the hiss of steam, the clink of copper being adjusted. You imagine rosewater dripping like honey, collecting in small glass jars shaped like ancient medicine bottles. A few sorters drift toward the sound, leaning over the low stone wall to watch the process. You stay behind, curled against the edge of a bowl. You're too comfortable to move, too content, and somehow you already know what they'll see. Copper gleaming like a second sun. Petals breaking down and becoming vapor. Fragrance turning into memory. Later, someone returns from the distillery with a glass vial. It's passed around reverently. A single drop of oil clings to the bottom. When it reaches you, you open the cork and take the tiniest breaths. It's impossible. You smell everything and nothing. Rain, sun, stone. Every petal you've sorted and forgotten. Every bowl you've touched. Every laugh, every sneeze, every sigh. You pass it on and close your eyes. Because suddenly you don't need to see anymore. You can just remember. By late afternoon, the courtyard is steeped in stillness. Not silence. There's always a hum, a shift, the occasional clatter of a bowl or a soft laugh, but the energy has changed. What was once busy, layered with motion and rhythm, has settled into something else. Reverence? You stretch your legs, arms heavy with the ache of careful work. Someone passes by and offers you a square of rose-infused locum Turkish delight. You bite in. It melts like soft perfume dusted in powdered sugar. You're not even sure if you're chewing or just remembering a dream about flowers. Then the debates begin. It starts with a single phrase, "Damask is best." The speaker, an older man whose sorting style is a little more chaotic than most, nods firmly as if the matter is closed. It is not. A younger woman laughs and counters, "Only if you like heavy oil. Kazanlik is cleaner." A few sorters pause in their cleanup to throw in their thoughts. Another woman votes for the Isparta hybrids, slightly tougher petals but more resilient to wind and early rains. Someone else mutters about the Bulgarian imports and is immediately shushed. You've stumbled into one of the courtyard's oldest rituals, the aromatic argument. It's lighthearted, mostly, but there's fire behind it. These people have strong opinions and centuries of instinct behind them. Someone swears by the pale pink Rosa canina. Another insists anything other than Rosa damascena is just decorative cabbage. You listen, grinning. Because even in disagreement, it's all love. Love for scent, love for the work, love for the petals. Historians still argue whether these kinds of varietal preferences were regional or purely personal. Some Ottoman records mention royal preferences for specific cultivars. Others suggest the differences were too subtle for official documentation. But here in this courtyard, the debate is as real as the bowls themselves. You lean in pretending to be neutral, but someone notices the petal behind your ear and says, "Oh, that pink, you're definitely a Damask fan." You shrug, busted. The conversation spins off into other rose-related controversies, whether petals should be rinsed before distilling. Most say no, whether morning or pre-dawn oils yield stronger notes, again divided, and whether rose water or rose oil holds the truer scent of the bloom. It depends on the mood, one woman sighs. Rose water is memory. Oil is presence. Someone writes that down in a little leather notebook. Later, you're shown how some sorters test scent without touching the petals. They hover their palms above the bowl and then bring their fingers to their temples, almost like reading Braille made of air. You try it. It works. Maybe. Or you just really want it to. A breeze knocks over a small wooden sign that had been wedged between two bowls. Someone retrieves it and dusts it off. On the back is carved a phrase in Turkish which a sorter translates for you. "Roses speak best in quiet hands." You carry that one with you. The sun tips lower, and the light in the courtyard shifts to amber. Shadows stretch long, and the color of the petals change with it. What was pale earlier now glows, what was crimson now deepens to maroon. The bowls themselves seem to glow from within. Someone breaks the silence with a joke about a man who tried to propose using only a sack of petals and no ring. She said no, the punchline goes, but the room smelled amazing. A few more jokes follow, all petal-themed and terrible. You laugh anyway. The sort of laugh that's half from humor and half from how full your chest feels. You rest a while longer, leaning back against one of the older bowls, and watch the others as they begin to stack their things. The woman who gave you the pressed petal earlier sits beside you again. Tomorrow, she says, we start earlier. You blink. Earlier than before dawn, she grins. The roses are always first. You nod slowly. It's not a warning. It's a promise. And suddenly, you realize you're already planning to return. You linger in the courtyard as the last shadows stretch across the stones, pooling beneath the benches and spilling over the rims of the empty bowls. It's quieter now, not just in sound, but in feeling. Like the whole day has exhaled and the petals, once eager and fragrant, are finally at rest. You help with the final sweep. Not because anyone asked, but because your hands don't feel like stopping. You gather the scattered petals into your palm, brush down a cloth wipe dust from the lip of a wooden bowl as if it were something holy. Then someone leans in and whispers, "Tonight's the full moon." You glance up. The sky hasn't darkened yet, but already the light feels bluer, cooler, expectant. Another voice joins in. You'll get to see it. The midnight bloom. You raise an eyebrow. A hush spreads, followed by smirks and shrugs. Someone waves a hand like they're dismissing the idea, and then, in the same motion, ties a ribbon around their wrist, just in case they mutter. The legend goes like this: once a year during the first full moon. After the spring peak, a single rose in the far field opens its petals only at midnight. Only then. Never before. Never again. It blooms, it sings, and then it vanishes. No one can pick it. No one can photograph it. But those who see it are marked by scent, by dream, by the quiet assurance that something perfect exists just for a moment. Historians still argue whether the tale is tied to older Persian myths, or whether it emerged in Isparta as a way to keep children from sneaking into fields at night. Some say it's real, others scoff. One Ottoman journal mentions the moon-kissed bloom, but gives no details. Still tonight, there are plans. Some of the younger sorters begin to pack tea scarves in quiet excitement. Others say they'll stay behind. I've seen it once, a woman tells you. That's enough. It was too beautiful. I don't want to see it change. You don't know what you believe, but you're curious. You gather your things and follow the small group up a side path that winds through the edge of the rose fields. The sun dips lower, the air cools, and the scent of the blossoms becomes sharper, like the roses are clearing their throats before nightfall. The path leads to a small stone terrace overlooking the fields. No lights, just mats, blankets, and a shared thermos of rose-laced tea. You sit, you wait, and the stories start. One man says he followed the scent once and ended up under the wrong bush, only to be scolded by a hedgehog. Another swears she saw the bloom and it moved not like wind, but like a yawn. Like it stretched toward her, then sighed. The boy who fluffs appears out of nowhere with a lantern. He's not holding it up. He's hugging it like a secret. No lights, he warns. She hates being seen. You lie back and stare up. The moon is rising now, bright, fat, and silver. The kind of moon that makes even your cuticles look magical. Everyone quiets. Below the rose fields shift in the breeze, the petals catching moonlight like mirrors. Then a gasp. You sit up. Far off, nearly invisible, something shifts. A single bush, no different from the others, seems to glow just a little more, just enough to make the others jealous. It's too far to see clearly, but the petals seem fuller, open, breathing. You can't tell if it's real. No one speaks. No one moves. You just sit together in silence, bound by belief, or maybe just the hope that belief makes things bloom. And then, without fanfare, the glow softens, fades, gone. Just another bush. You blink. You lean into the moment. And you believe, if only because you want to. Someone breaks the silence with a sigh and pours more tea. No one says the word magic, but it hangs there anyway. The walk back to the courtyard is slower this time. Not just because the path is uneven or because the full moon makes every rock look like a lurking cat, but because no one is in a hurry to leave that feeling behind. The group says little. Footsteps crunch softly against packed earth and scarves flutter in the breeze. Occasionally, someone glances back toward the field as if hoping to catch one last shimmer, one more proof that they saw what they think they saw. You don't talk either, not because you doubt what you witnessed, but because somehow putting it into words feels like stealing. By the time you return to the courtyard, it's transformed again. Lanterns glow low along the walls, casting soft circles of light on the stone. Some of the sorters have stayed behind, curled beneath blankets, sipping warm drinks and chatting in hushed voices. Bowls sit stacked neatly in corners, their petals long since sorted, their scent still clinging like a gentle reminder. You settle into a spot near one of the benches. The stone's cooled, but holds the day's warmth like a secret it's reluctant to give up. And then someone brings out a bowl. Not for sorting, for stories. It's an old tradition here, apparently. Once a season, one of the empty wooden bowls becomes a vessel for tales. Each person drops something into it, a petal, a pebble, a bit of cloth, and with it shares a short story from their past harvests. The woman who sang earlier places a rosebud into the bowl, and tells of the time she laughed so hard while sorting she snorted petals up her nose and had to sneeze them out in front of a visiting dignitary. The man with the brass scoop adds a carved olive pit and recounts a moment when lightning struck a rosebush during a storm, setting it alight without burning the petals. They just glowed, he whispers, like fireflies. Your turn comes. You don't have much, but you find the pressed petal from your pocket still folded in its paper. You unfold it, hesitate, and then place it gently into the bowl. I didn't know roses could be quiet, you say. That's all. But the nods around you say it was enough. Historians still argue whether these storytelling rituals were tied to ancient Anatolian oral traditions, or whether they were invented as late-night boredom busters by overworked sorters. One thing is certain, no one writes them down. They're passed, not printed. Meant to vanish like the scent of a petal rubbed between fingers. Someone adds a joke after your story. Something about a goat with a perfume addiction, and the mood lifts again. Laughter returns muffled and sweet like rose-flavored syrup over soft cake. Then a new game begins. Guess the scent. One person closes their eyes, and another places a folded petal under their nose. Without seeing it, they must name the variety, the bush, and even the part of the field it came from. It sounds absurd, until the first woman nails it. Damask. Southfield. Early morning cut. Everyone erupts. You try next. You're not terrible, but also not impressive. You guess pink-ish. Someone claps mockingly. You're crowned prince of vague florals for the night. You accept the title. The lanterns dim one by one. Tea is finished. The bowls are covered with cloth like sleeping children. And slowly, the courtyard thins out. Sorters vanish into side rooms, into cottages just beyond the walls, into dreams. You stay a bit longer. The stars are out in full now. The moon still rides high. The scent in the courtyard has changed, less like fresh petals, more like memory. Like paper and wood and air that remembers being warmer. You wonder how long the smell will linger. You wonder how long you will. You finally rise, brushing dust from your knees. As you do, someone hands you something, a spoon. Not the olive wood one from earlier, a new one. Simpler, uncarved, lighter. You bring it back, they say. Or you pass it on. You nod, accepting the weight of it, which is very little, but feels like something nonetheless. You tuck it into your satchel next to the folded paper. You inhale one last time, slow and full, and commit the scent to memory. Then you step quietly out of the courtyard. You don't look back, not because you're done, but because you know it's not really leaving. It's steeping, like tea, like time, like roses. The next morning, you wake up smelling like the day before. It's not just your clothes, though. Those are definitely steeped in soft perfume. It's your hair, your skin, the backs of your hands, like your very pores remembered the petals. You stretch slowly as though rising might dislodge the delicate traces of scent still clinging to you. You walk back toward the courtyard in silence, the morning breeze still carrying the chill of dawn. Somewhere behind you, the rooster gives his usual screech, late as always. A dog yawns. A donkey flicks his ear and continues pretending not to care. The courtyard isn't empty, but it's different now. Bowls have been stacked neatly into rows along the walls. Cloths have been folded. Even the stray petals have mostly vanished, save for a few clinging defiantly to corners like they know they're not quite done yet. One of the elder sorters greets you with a nod and a small amused look, like she knew you'd come back. She leads you toward the rows of stacked bowls and gestures toward one in particular. A middle-sized, one darker wood, a few scratches along the rim that seem familiar. You realize it's the one you sorted from most yesterday. She hands it to you. For cleaning, you blink. Apparently, this too is part of the ritual. You carry the bowl to a side area where a few others are already washing. There's no soap, just warm water in a basin, soft brushes made from woven palm, and a quiet rhythm of soaking and scrubbing and drying. You dip the bowl slowly. The water darkens as it touches the wood, and for a moment the scent blooms again, not bright this time, but mellow. A faded version of yesterday, like the memory of a rose rather than the rose itself. You scrub gently, mindful not to erase any more than you should. The woman beside you whispers, "Bowls have memory. Don't wash too deep." You nod even though you're not entirely sure what that means. She shows you how to dry it wrapped in cotton pressed with your palms, then left upside right on a shelf to air its soul. You smile, of course. Once all the bowls are cleaned and resting, you're asked to help arrange them for next season. Not by size or use, but by energy, apparently. Some bowls prefer corners, others need sunlight. A few are always stored together because they gossip when apart. You don't question it anymore. You just listen, and place, and learn. One by one, the bowls settle into their resting spots. Covered again, waiting. The elder sorter brings you tea stronger this time, spiced. She sits beside you and tells a story of the year the petals bloomed late and everyone thought the season was ruined. Then, without warning, the bushes exploded with color, and the entire town smelled like perfume for a week straight. It's always the year you doubt it most, she says, when the roses surprise you. Historians still argue whether climate shifts impacted rose oil production during the early 20th century, but local stories say otherwise. It wasn't weather, it was mood. Roses, they claim, bloom better when spoken to kindly. The woman beside you taps the spoon still tucked in your satchel. You keeping it? You pause. Then you take it out, offer it to her. She shakes her head. No, keep it, but teach someone. You nod. And the promise lands somewhere beneath your ribs, like a stone in warm water. As the morning drifts toward noon, more sorters arrive. Not to work, just to talk. To sit. To let the scent fade from their clothes while it lingers in their memory. Someone brings honeyed nuts. Someone brings poetry. And someone brings a small bowl filled not with petals, but with pieces of paper. Fortune bowl. You each draw one. Yours says scent fades. Memory does not. Keep sorting. You fold it, smile, and slip it next to the pressed petal from yesterday. And finally, when the courtyard grows quiet again and the last of the rose stories has been told, you rise. You walk once more past the stacked bowls, past the copper distillery's dome now cooled, past the fields where the bushes sit bare and proud, already preparing for next year's bloom. And you do not feel empty. You feel steeped, like a petal in hot water, like time in a bowl. You leave the village as slowly as you arrived, though now your steps are surer, your shoulders a little straighter, as if they too remember the weight of a full bowl. The air is different outside the courtyard. Lighter, drier, less perfumed, and yet everything around you somehow feels infused with rose, faint and warm, like a scent remembered more than smelled. It clings to the folds of your shirt, the edge of your sleeve, even the curve of your collarbone. Down the winding path you pass the fields again. The bushes are quieter now. Stripped of most of their bloom, they stand like tired dancers after a long performance. Their thorns still sharp, their leaves still firm. But their work for now is done. You pause by one particularly wide bush, its branches drooping slightly under the weight of one last hidden flower. A pale pink bloom, small, crinkled, imperfect. You bend to sniff it anyway. It smells like everything you've just lived. Everything that doesn't fit on paper. Everything that clings in the folds of silence. Behind you, the courtyard hums one final time, a low murmur of voices, footsteps, laughter. You don't turn around. Some part of you knows not to. It's like leaving a sacred place. Best to carry it forward rather than chase it backward. You step into the dusty road bowl, packed in cloth under one arm, spoon tucked safely in your satchel, and that folded paper fortune resting lightly near your heart. The sun climbs brushing gold onto the hills around you. A cart rattles by. Someone waves. You wave back. Further down, you pass a man selling tea from a metal urn, his cart wreathed in steam and the faint scent of mint. You stop for a cup. He doesn't ask your name. Just pours the tea and nods like he's seen 100 like you, soft-eyed, rose-stained, moving a little slower than before. You take a sip. It's not rose-flavored, and still it tastes like home, because now you know how scent lingers in memory and memory lingers in hands, in the way you pick up a bowl, in the way you sort through something soft, in the way you pause before discarding something imperfect, knowing finally that even flawed petals hold oil. That some things bloom best under pressure. That some stories can only be told by fingertips. That sometimes the quietest tasks make the loudest echoes. You turn once before the road bends just for a final look. The village is already hazy in the sunlight. The distillery dome glints once like a wink. You smile to yourself, then tuck your head down and walk on. Because this story doesn't end at the courtyard wall, it settles into your bones. Like oil, like a secret, like a rose. The scent has faded now, softly. Gently, like the last breath of a petal before it dries and curls in on itself. Your hands are still, the bowls are quiet, the courtyard is long gone. And yet, you carry it all with you. The hush of the early morning fields, the slow motion of sorting, the way light passed over wood and turned it gold. Let yourself settle. Let your breath lengthen. Inhale. Something faint perhaps imagined. Maybe rose. Maybe memory. Exhale. The noise, the questions, the weight of days heavier than petals. You did not rush today. You did not measure time by clocks or screens. You measured it in softness, in scent, in a bowl slowly filling with something fragile and real. You're allowed to be still now. You're allowed to curl inward like a petal when the wind begins to change. Let the air quiet around you. Let the images blur. Bowls stacked gently. Spoons laid beside sleeping roses. The copper dome cooling as stars blink into place. That faint, haunting tune someone hummed without words. Even now the memory lingers. It always will. And when you sleep, may your dreams be soft. May your heart sort through the day gently. May whatever is heavy be sifted. May whatever is fragrant rise. Because even in silence, you remember the roses